Welcome, brothers. I'm JK, head coach and founder of Porn Reboot. Today I'm going to be talking about the regret stage of your porn addiction cycle. Now, over the past couple of weeks, I broke down the other stages of the porn addiction cycle. We've spoken about the dormant stage, we've spoken about the trigger stage, we've spoken about the preparation stage, we've also spoken about the acting out stage, and today we're going to be speaking about regret. Now, just as it sounds, the regret stage happens right after you've acted out. So this is after you have viewed pornography, after you have orgasmed, after you've masturbated, or when you told yourself that you weren't going to do this. Now, the interesting thing about the regret stage is that men fall into two categories. You can categorize the groups of men who go through the regret stage into what I call high remorse and low remorse men. Now, high remorse men are men who experience a high level of remorse and regret due to two situations. And the first is the negative consequences of what they've experienced, and the second is all the different layers of cognitive distortions, of lies, and of thinking errors that you've applied to your relapse. On the other hand, when it comes to low remorse men basically don't feel guilty about their behavior, about their relapse. And I also want to make it clear that at different points in your life, as you deal with this addiction, you're going to fall into the high remorse and the low remorse category. And the thing that really compounds this situation and makes it probably the most painful stage of the porn addiction cycle is shame. And I'm going to talk about that shortly. But first of all, let's talk about high remorse men. Typically, a man experiences high remorse when he's been caught red-handed, or maybe when you've told your wife or your partner that you're not going to watch pornography, you still end up watching porn, you still end up relapsing. Or worse still, if you've told your partner that you actually ended your behavior, but you've been slipping, you've been viewing pornography, and you do this for months or even years, and then she finds out later, she's very angry, and she wants to end the relationship. High remorse. Sometimes you might get into a really tough situation like catching an STD if you act out physically, or getting into some legal problems, maybe by sexting someone in a certain way. And there are all kinds of things that you can do that can cross the line legally and get you in trouble. That can also lead to high remorse if you typically don't feel any remorse. Now, for men who are low remorse men, this is usually men who do not experience any consequences for their actions. So that means that maybe you're the type of guy who gets away with it all the time, or you're the kind of guy who's told his wife or partner that he's no longer into that, and she's just trusting, or she just really doesn't believe that you can do it. So even if she finds you doing something, you're really good at just coming up with an excuse. Oh, that wasn't me, it must have been somebody else, that's not my stuff, I don't know how it ended up on my device. So those of you who do that, you know yourselves and you know what you do. Let's talk a little bit about shame. Now, shame is a very, very strong emotion that comes up in three situations after you've slipped during the regret phase. The first is when your behavior goes against your beliefs and your values. So if you have certain beliefs, maybe you're a very conservative individual and you don't watch certain types of pornography, or you don't believe in certain sexual acts, but you keep relapsing to those, you can end up feeling a lot of shame because you're like, this goes against my belief, this goes against my values. Maybe you're a straight man who is watching porn that's homosexual in nature, and you absolutely believe that no aspect of you is homosexual. So you can end up feeling shame because of this. The second situation where men experience shame is if you're living a double life. So if you're the type of man who, on the surface, your family, everybody who knows you think that you live a very specific type of life, but on the other hand, you just keep relapsing. Maybe you are a leader, maybe you are the pastor of a church, maybe you're an individual who is looked up to in your community, but despite your position and the way that you're perceived, you keep slipping. And your wife, your partner, the people who look up to you, they have no idea about this part of your life. You can't handle the shame, so that grows in your life. And the final reason why men experience shame is when you've set very high expectations for yourself. So you've said, listen, there's certain things that I need to achieve in life. I need to be behaving a certain way at this point in my life. Maybe you're a father. Maybe you are 30 years old and you feel that the age of 30 is an age where you need to be mature and responsible. A lot of men start feeling that way at the age of 25. But when you look at your life and you realize that your self-image does not match your behavior, that can create a lot of shame because you're ashamed of yourself. You're ashamed of your inability to control this part of your life, and you might end up perceiving that as weakness. That weakness creates shame. And brothers, I've said it over and over again, shame is pretty much the fertilizer for your porn addiction. Your porn addiction thrives in shame. And that shame is the thing that is going to keep you from reaching out for help. It's the thing that's going to hold you back. It's the thing that's going to prevent you from getting accountability. And it's a very, very powerful thing when you can admit to yourself and to others that you have this problem. You may think when it comes to shame that you've admitted it to yourself, but the truth is you probably haven't. And I highly recommend that if you're dealing with shame, take some time and write it out honestly. Write out, like, I am a porn addict. I do not have control over this behavior. If you feel that you need help or somebody's support, write it out. I need help in order to move forward or to move to the next stage in my life. Now, there is one other situation that occurs in the regret stage, and there are some men who unfortunately experience a very, very high level of remorse. And what happens is you experience shame. Your shame now affects your self-esteem. And when you feel that you have low self-esteem, you medicate your low self-esteem with pornography. So you end up watching pornography in order to stop feeling shame, and then you end up back in the triggered part of the porn addiction cycle. So you basically skip the dormant stage and you go straight from triggered, from your low self-esteem, to preparation, to acting out. You act out, you experience regret, your regret triggers low self-esteem, and you're back in the cycle. You never have a period of dormancy, so you just never get a break. And down the line, this can lead to what might seem like mental health issues, but it's really not a healthy place to be. And there are a lot of men who end up in therapy, and even though they understand that they're dealing with shame and low self-esteem, sometimes if your therapist doesn't understand your porn addiction or your out of control sexual behavior, or if they're not trained in it, or you haven't shared it with them, then they're never able to identify that you are caught in this cycle. And when you are able to identify that you're caught in this cycle, that's when you're able to step out of it. Now, the regret stage, brothers, can last anywhere from minutes to months. So there are some low remorse men that are going to feel remorse and regret for a short period of time, and there are some guys who it just eats you up, it eats you up for months and months and months. And brothers, in the next video that I'm going to share with you guys, I'm going to be talking about the final stage of the porn addiction cycle, which is called the restoration stage. And this is a very relevant stage, and I'm going to show you what a lot of high and low remorse men do when they're in this stage. And I'm excited to share it because a lot of you guys can probably relate to it. So brothers, that is it. That is the regret stage of the porn addiction cycle. I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. What's your regret like? Are you a high remorse sort of man, or are you a low remorse man? Or has it just been different for you over the years, over the months that you've been struggling with this behavior? And if you found this video helpful, please take a moment to subscribe and drop a like. If there's some other topics you'd like me to cover, go ahead and share that in the comment section below. I actually read all the comments and I respond whenever I get the opportunity. So brothers, I do appreciate it. And whenever you're ready, if you'd like to learn more about my system, go ahead and pick up a copy of my free ebook. It's called Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men. And it's the roadmap to ending your out of control behavior with porn and masturbation addiction. And there's a link to that in the description below this video. Have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you in a couple of days.